Okay, let's get started. So today we have Miss Bhadoria with us for the third and final workshop of the day. She's an aerospace scientist at NASA. So we'll start once again, as we have been doing with all three workshops, with some of the questions that me and Rishad came up with. Then we'll move on to pre-submitted questions and questions that you guys put in the chat. So feel free to put any question you have in the chat. We'll make sure it gets answered. So let's get started. Ms. Bhadoria, so first, can you tell us a little bit about your life as a space scientist? What exactly do you do in your job, and what exactly is your field about?
Yeah, so I am an aerospace researcher at NASA Ames Research Center, and I work on making the U.S. national airspace more efficient. And I'm working directly with FAA and some of our partner airlines and helping them make their operations more efficient in terms of time and also in terms of the cost associated with their day-to-day operations. As you may know, US airspace is the busiest airspace in the world at any given day. We have about, on a normal day, not right now, but before COVID, on a normal given day, we had about 5,000 airplanes, flights taking place every day in the United States. So, and it's a very, very complex system managing the schedule of all these airlines and making them run smoothly, scheduling them in an efficient manner. So I work closely with airlines and FAA in trying to optimize the whole day-to-day operations of our airspace system.
That sounds pretty cool. So I think you just answered the next question we were thinking, like, what do you do at like work? So in order to manage all these complex operations, what tools do you use? Like, do you use like what type of technology or what things you use in general to get like plan out all the logistics of these events?
So I do a lot of hands-on work with data. So you can think of it as data science, and we look at data. We have field operations at certain airports, so we get a lot of data, tons and tons of data coming in every day, and we do a deep dive of data. We do a lot of data modeling in Python, and we are also working on developing some machine learning models to simulate the conditions, simulate the schedule and the complexities of different airports, and be able to optimize their operations, be able to make some predictions about schedules and delays, and optimize the overall operations in terms of what routes would be beneficial, what routes would help airlines by saving their delays, saving their cost of operations. So me and my team, we personally deal with a lot of data. We do a lot of data analysis. We do a lot of data modeling. We also work on machine learning models to make predictions about future events. We For data modeling and machine learning side, we do use tools like scikit-learn, which is a Python-based library. So that's something that we use. We use MLflow for monitoring our workflows, and we do use a lot of Python scripts for digging into data for data mining side of things.
Okay, so what factors do you have to keep in mind when you're planning out the routes? Like I think you talked about the cost. Like what other factors do you have to keep in mind when you're planning these complex events?
The schedule, airline operations are very expensive. So if we can make sure that our flights can depart their airports on time, reach their airports on time, or as close to as possible to the schedule, that's the most important factor for airlines. If we can achieve that, then that will translate into savings in terms of dollars, and also passenger convenience will come from that. So for us, we get a certain set of priorities or certain set of data elements which are important for different airlines, and we try to optimize based on that. but the one thing that if I had to put one thing or name one thing that would be our highest priority, it's minimizing the delays of operations.
So what does your day-to-day like work job look like? Like when you get to work, what exactly do you do from the start to end to like the end when you go home or when you finish?
Yeah, so as I said earlier, we get daily, we have a lot of data coming in. So we get daily data reports. We look into the data. We try to figure out any abnormalities or any unusual, events that happened in previous days' data. Try to understand the reasons behind any abnormalities. Try to understand why those reasons or why those, factors that led to any abnormalities occurred in the first place, and then how to handle them better in the future, how to model them in our data, how to model them in our data prediction models. So we do a lot of analysis and try to understand the factors that lead to certain events or certain outliers, and try to uh, model them in our ML models that we are building. So we do a lot of back and forth with data, a lot of looking, visualizing the data, plotting it into charts and looking at data from different angles. And then we have our subject matter experts. We bring them into the conversation and we try to get their input on certain, outliers or certain aberrations, and try to understand. So it's a very collective effort. It's not just my team, it's several teams working together. We do a lot of analysis, and then there are subject matters experts who have worked in this field for many, many years, so they can give you perspective from a flight operator's view. And they're very familiar with certain airports. They know the complexities and uh, problems associated with each airport, because each airport is different. If you've seen one airport, you've seen one airport. If you look at a different set of airports, it will come with its own set of problems. So we try to understand, what causes delays or what causes flight cancellations, and then what are the other factors that are into play at any given moment. So a lot of digging into data and analyzing data and collaborating with our subject matter experts and getting inputs from airlines about what their side of the story is and putting picture together. So we do a lot of this to try to get put a picture together for any given day and try to translate that into our models so that in future our models are smarter in predicting such events.
Wow, you look like you're really busy during work for sure. How has COVID impacted your job?
It has made it more interesting actually, because as you may be aware, aviation was one of the hardest hit industries after COVID. In fact, in April of this year, the operations were down 94% on a year-to-year basis. So that means that airlines are losing a lot of money, and that gives them even more incentive to optimize whatever operations they have left going forward. And this was also an opportunity for us to work closer with FAA to formulate policies for future, because now that the volume was low, we can introduce certain changes going forward. So it has thrown a curveball our way for sure, but there were a lot of opportunities that came with it. And this this tough time also emphasized the period of the importance of other work we are doing to airlines, and they definitely could see the importance of what we are doing even more, given that how important this industry is and how important or useful the work we are doing is for them. So it was tough time, but it had its own hidden opportunities behind it.
That's pretty cool. So, in order to be a NASA researcher like you, what path do you have to take in order to reach your current position? Like starting all the way, let's say from high school, in terms of like college classes, university. Like what paths did you take to get to where you are today?
You know, so I can give example of what path I took, but I can at the same time I want to emphasize there's no one clear way or one clear field that you need to study to reach here. The reason I'm saying that is that I work with fellow researchers. Some of them are not even from an engineering background. I know some of the very successful researchers I work with, they have a background, for example, in psychology. And now you would think that what would a person with a background in psychology do in as a researcher in aerospace? The thing is, they bring their own perspective. They bring in the human factors side of it. So whenever we develop a new technology, it has to encompass the vision or a 360-degree vision. So it's not just, you cannot just think like a technologist or a person with the engineering background or from sciences to develop technology. It has to be also evaluated from the point of view of how easy or difficult it's going to be for the end user. So that's the human factors perspective that comes into play. And then you have to think from the psychological point of view, what how you can make this tool that you're developing or the result of the research that you're doing, how can you make it more useful and appealing to your end user. So my answer to this would be there's no one clear way. You don't have, I mean, you definitely, you when one thinks of NASA, one thinks of scientists. We are full of scientists and very smart ones. But I would say if you are not into sciences, there's still a lot of different ways of participating in a research project like this. But coming back to me, I have a bachelor's in computer science and engineering from India, and my master's is in computer science from Florida. My specialization back in grad school was in machine learning, and then I worked in different industries actually. Before I joined NASA, I worked in Silicon Valley for about 16 years. I worked in semiconductors, I've worked in biotechnology, I've worked in different industries. The common thread was that I took my skills as a computer scientist and as a person with a background in machine learning and AI. I took that to different industries, and I think most of you know that in order to work at NASA, you have to be a US citizen. So I became citizen in 2018, and then I joined NASA. Excuse me. And I think you have to have a passion for what you're doing, and you can have a certain set of skills, and you can find your way through different industries. So in my case, it was my background in AI and machine learning that I took to different industries, and eventually I found my way to NASA, which is somewhere I always wanted to work at NASA since I was a little kid growing up in India. So yeah, just follow your passion, and it's okay if you're not a science person. There's a lot of interesting work to do even outside of sciences. That's one big advice I have. There are a lot of interesting people. It's a very multidisciplinary area. At NASA, I've seen people from all kinds of backgrounds, all doing amazing work, all contributing to amazing projects in different capacities.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you. So, out of all the complex things that go on in your life, what is the most, or like, what's your favorite part of your job? Like, what's that one thing when you wake up in the morning you look forward to the most? Like, your favorite part, the part that you just enjoy the most of your job?
I think knowing that what I'm doing here is going to make an impact all over the national airspace. So I know I'm working on this project, which will be in phases later on, which will be implemented all over the US at every airport. So knowing that I'm contributing towards making the, such a complex industry more efficient, and the work that I'm doing now is going to impact or touch the lives of many, many, many millions of people over the years without them even knowing. So just knowing that what I'm doing has far-reaching effects. That's what makes it more interesting.
Cool. Now let's move on to some of the questions that our live audience asked in the chat. We'll go between these questions and the pre-submitted questions that we had from the Google form. So the first question in the chat is, do you work with other companies to make your operations possible, like companies such as Google, Amazon, Microsoft, or even startups?
No. So what we do at NASA, and I'll tell you an interesting thing. So coming from private industry to NASA, which is a federal agency, one big difference was that whereas in private industry, every little action is geared towards making maximum profit. So everything you do is evaluated as how would it help in revenues later on. In NASA, what we do, it's all geared towards making, making United, like whatever technology we're working on, national space. So in my case, it's making the U.S. national airspace system more efficient, making improving our airspace system. But in general, if you go to the charter of NASA, it's written there that one of the purposes of NASA is to keep US #1 in science and technology, and everything we do, it's geared towards fulfilling that goal and keeping us #1 in every aspect of science and technology. So what we do is we do a lot of research on our side. We come up with this new ideas. So I know there are within my division, there are other teams which are working on flying cars, flying taxis, because that's where the future is. And so right now we are looking like 20 years ahead, and we are working on formulating the policies, doing the research now, so that 20 years later, when all these flying cars and drones and everything are commonplace, we have already set up the policies in place so that the airspace is safe for them. The rules are clearly defined for them. So what we do is a lot of forward-looking work, and everything is geared towards making this country safer, more efficient in different ways. And so we do a lot of research, and we usually run our projects in 5-year cycles. And towards the end of it, all the learning lessons and all the technical knowledge and all the results of our research are packaged and passed on to the industry for them to take it over and take it forward from there to maybe commercialize it and use our lessons learned and use it however they want to use it. So we sort of do the groundwork for all the future research. We do the research for all the future technologies and hand it over to the industry, and they take it forward from there. So we are sort of investing. The work we are doing is an investment by the government into future technologies that will be coming up in the United States. And I can also tell you that there is a SBIR program run by not just NASA, but most of the other federal agencies, where our research is handed over to small companies along with a certain amount of seed funding. So we fund the companies, like really small ones, we fund them and we hand them over the lessons learned from our research. And then we pass it over to them, and then they take it forward from them. So they, under our guidance, they develop into some commercial technology, or they develop into commercial software, depending on what the research is or what the field is. So we do the research, we come up with lessons learned, and then we seed fund small companies, and they take over our research. So look it up. It's called SBIR program, and this is all sort of investment by government into United States, state of United States research and technology. So yeah, we do a lot of independent work. We might work with other federal agencies. Like in my case, we work with FAA. I know one of my colleagues, they're working on urban air mobility, and they're working specifically in the area of air taxis. They are probably collaborating with, they are collaborating with a few private industry partners. I don't think I can disclose who they are, but we work We work mostly independently or with other federal agencies, but when the research involves something that's, imminent, like in a few years, something that needs to be taken up, then we do collaborate with potential partners who may need that technology.
Okay, so bouncing off the idea of being technologically advanced, have you ever tried designing like new planes that are more efficient? Or like what are your thoughts or what do you know about that?
I have not, because that's not my field, but I know NASA is working on X-59 supersonic. So you may be aware that Concorde was the commercial supersonic plane, which is not in operation anymore. And the problem you may know about supersonics is that they cannot fly over land because of the sonic boom. So for that reason, the Concorde was only flying across Atlantic. NASA is working on X-59 super low boom supersonic. So and we are pretty close to there. You might, if you do a Google search, you might see some videos on YouTube about X-59 supersonic plane. And the low boom technology is that the sonic boom would be low enough that it could be flight over the land. And once you have that all in place, you might start seeing supersonic flights across continental US, so from say New York to San Francisco in 2 hours or so. So that's one thing that's definitely coming up. And then, as I mentioned, we are not designing air taxis, but we are working with companies who are designing air taxis. And I can tell you in the past, every aircraft that has flown in the United States has been tested at the wind tunnels at Ames Research Center. So every single aircraft, not the single piece, but model has been tested. We have world's largest wind tunnels. We have supersonic, subsonic, and hypersonic wind tunnels. So and even for SpaceX, the Crew Dragon and all the spaceships are being tested here at NASA Ames wind tunnels. And me personally, I'm not directly involved with that because, as I said, that's not my field. I'm not a aircraft designer, but we have a lot of research going on within NASA for development of new aircraft.
Well, that sounds pretty cool. So someone in the chat was wondering, do you work with like directly the Space Force or a government program?
Space Force is a separate agency. I work for NASA, which is also a government agency. So no, I don't work for Space Force, but I work for the government because I work for NASA.
Cool. So someone in the chat also asked, where do you see the future of space technology going? Do you think we will be able to keep enhancing space tech, or are we just nearing our peak? What is your outlook or forecast in that field?
I think we are in the next golden age of development of space technology. There's a lot of interesting work going on. And this time, the difference is that we have companies like SpaceX or the Blue Origin. We have these private players in picture this time. The NASA is helping them big time. So see, when NASA was working on the Apollo program back in the 60s, late 50s and 60s, uh, we worked on our own. So we developed all this infrastructure to do there's tons of testing that goes on behind every little aspect of designing a new spacecraft or space exploration component. So now we are extending our infrastructure to these private players. So they bring in their hardware or they bring in their, the parts of the spaceships or they need tested. They don't have to invest on their side to create infrastructure for all the testing. They can use our infrastructure. So we have existing technology. We have resources that we are helping the private players with, and they are leveraging that. So we are working together, and I think this is the next golden age of space exploration. And most of the kids over here may be aware of the Artemis program. So we are working on launching the next the first woman and the next man to moon in 2024, and from there the next step would be Mars. So from moon to Mars, that's the mission of Artemis. And I think this is the best time. I mean, I think you all are very fortunate that you will get to see the next moon landing in a few years, and Mars landing not very distant future.
That sounds pretty cool. So someone in the chat was also wondering, when you're working on all these, on like the logistics of all these flights, are we specifically checking if the flights are going to be on time or if the flights are going to be safe, or both?
On time and also safe. By safe, I mean avoiding inclement weather. So weather, you may know, weather conditions can change at any time. So monitoring weather is a special important component of that. So, and that helps with safety as well as on-time performance. So I would say it's both.
Okay, cool. So someone else also asked, you seem to work in teams a lot. What characteristics make you a good teammate, and what are your thoughts on that when it comes to working in like a professional workspace?
I think some of the important characteristics are listening to others, giving a chance for to others to speak up and listening to others, and then collaborating, being open to ideas, being open to working together, and knowing that everybody brings certain qualities with them which can help the project. So being able to collaborate is, I think, the biggest, and listening. These two, I think, are the biggest qualities one can have to be a successful team player. Very often people forget to listen to others. And I think now that everybody is working remotely, that's even more important.
Thank you. That's great advice. Someone else also asked, for your job, what different subjects do you use? Like academic subjects, we can say.
Yeah, so we do a lot of statistical modeling. We use I want to say computer science. I mean, there are different teams within our project. There is a whole software team, which, so we do the research and they do the implementation. So if you are from the computer from the programming background, that is one area. You can be part of that team. If you are more into statistical modeling or machine learning data mining, you can be part of the analysis side of it. If you have background in aviation, so if you understand how flight controlling work or air traffic management works in general, you can be a subject matter expert and help collaborate with cross-functional teams. So, and then as I said earlier, also if you're a human factors person, then you can bring, we send out human factors people are also important part of our whole team, because they are like the interface between the researchers and the end users, which in our case are the flight controllers and flight operators, because they make it easy for our research to be used and digested by the flight controllers. So they are like the middle layer over there. So uh, different areas of study can contribute to this project in different ways.
Thank you. So the next question was, NASA seems to be all space science enthusiast streams, whether you are a US citizen or not. So how do you feel about that? And what did it feel like to be hired by NASA?
Yeah, NASA was definitely my childhood dream when I was growing up in India. I think it's a matter of great pride and privilege to be working at NASA. I know you have to be a US citizen, unfortunately, to be working at NASA. So uh, for people who are watching it from other parts of the world and who have same dreams as me, when I was a kid growing up in India, I know it can be a little bit of a damper, but I think there are ways. I mean, there are ways to contribute to NASA. And being here, like I remember when I first walked into the campus, and then there's history littered around the whole campus. I mean, I get to work with people uh, who've invented things I've studied about in my textbooks growing up. I got to be in the same facility and try out the same things that our first astronauts trained on. I got to be in it's just littered with history. It's littered with so much of uh, amazing stuff that you have read about or you may have seen in documentaries. And being able to be there and know that you're part of this now, it's like I sometimes have to pinch myself to believe it. It's amazing.
Yeah, that sounds like a pretty cool feeling. So NASA is a pretty big sort of like organization almost. So like what are the different fields of NASA? Because I know it's a really broad term almost because there's so many different things that most people don't think about. So could you talk about all the fields of NASA and just like generally all like the
Yeah. So when one thinks of NASA, the first picture that comes to mind is space and astronauts. NASA is not just that. NASA is in fact divided into four different mission directorates. So there is aeronautics, there is science directorate, there is Earth Sciences Directorate or NASA Earth, and there is the Human Exploration Directorate. So aeronautics deals with everything to do with designing spacecraft, futures, next generation spacecrafts, or making sure that our spacecrafts and airplanes they function efficiently and on time, and how do we improve the existing aircrafts. That's what aeronautics is. I can also tell you that in sciences, in the science directorate, we do a lot of study about astrobiology. So biology, but in outer space, how does it affect? So we do gene studies, so there's a lot of research going on from that perspective, how it affects, how space affects biology. We do a lot of research on Earth about, like different things related to Earth. It could be related to weather. It could be related to, uh, tectonic activities. It could be, yeah, it's a lot of, and then a space exploration, which is what everybody thinks of, space research. So you could be a biologist and be part of cutting edge research at NASA. You could be a mechanical engineer. You could be a civil engineer because you may, if you recall, I mentioned urban air mobility a few minutes ago, which is uh, planning for the age of space, not space, air taxis. So it's amazing. When I never thought that civil engineers are actually, there are civil engineers who are working on planning for air taxis and congestion. Like right now we are all stuck on 101, but once air taxis become a common thing, uh, there could be congestion in airspace. So how do we deal with that? How do we optimize things? Where would the air taxis be parked? Like you have heliports for helicopters, there would be something called vertiports for air taxis. How do you plan them? Where should they be placed? So all these kind of things are there. And it's amazing. It's a very, very multifaceted place to work. And it's not just only space. There's a lot more beyond space to do at NASA.
So someone just asked, as you were talking about air taxis, what like are they? Could you, because not, I don't think everybody knows exactly what they are.
So I don't know how many of your viewers are aware of Clemson's. It's like air taxis are like flying cars. Uh, and so, for example, you may have heard of air taxis, Uber Air, which is an example of air taxi. Uber is working on Uber Air, which will be, They will take you, fly you to your short distance, and then drop you instead of driving you. So that's what I mean by air taxis. So flying cars is another way of thinking about it. So flying cars haven't happened yet. And I know a lot of movies predicted that by 2015 or 2020, people will be using flying cars. It hasn't happened, but it's coming soon.
Yeah, I think all of us are waiting for that moment as well. Someone also asked about, I think, sonic booms. So you were talking about how like some planes have a sonic boom and how you can't do that over land. So someone asked, can you elaborate more about that?
Yeah. So just a caveat, I'm not a acoustics expert, but sonic boom is so when the speed of aircraft crosses the speed of sound, it creates this shock wave, which is called sonic boom, and it sounds like a explosion or a loud explosion, and that causes all the glasses and all in. So if you're in a room and there's a sonic boom, all your windows will shatter. Because of this reason, supersonic aircrafts right now are not allowed to fly over land. They were only allowed to fly over water because there's no houses or property to damage because of sonic boom. NASA is working on X-59, which is the low boom aircraft, and the shock wave that will be generated, because there's got to be a shock wave. If the speed of aircraft exceeds the speed of sound, there will be a shock wave. But this aircraft is going to be designed, or it is already designed. I've seen prototypes of it. It's already designed in such a way that the sound wave, if you look at the graph of it, the the uh, the the wave itself will be not as bad. I'm trying to think of simple words to explain it. So the shock wave intensity will be much milder, which will not result in any property damage. And because of that, it would be possible to start flying supersonic planes over land, because the loudness of it will be much less. It will not be a discomfort or a nuisance anymore.
So thank you. That was pretty intuitive. Someone in the pre-submitted questions asked, so NASA, since when you think of NASA, you think of like space. And then when you think about space, some people think about like aliens or like different sort of life. So does NASA have any branch that, talks that like focuses on alien research or any like life out there?
Not that I know of, but if it's there, then you can search for it. And if you can't search for it and it's still there, then probably even I won't be allowed to speak about it. But not that I know of.
Okay, so someone in the chat asked, is NASA working on something to make them green? Like some big companies nowadays have been like focusing on a net zero carbon emission to make the planet better or to like prevent climate change or global warming. What is NASA's approach on this? Or have they taken like any like stand on climate change?
Yeah, definitely. We are NASA. We are driven by science, right? And everything we do is making things efficient and improving things. And if something is efficient, it helps at some level with, for example, global emissions or carbon emissions. So coming back to specifically my work, when I make airlines more efficient, I'm reducing their fuel consumption. I'm reducing the time they are spending just taxiing and burning the fuel, and reducing the time they're spending on air. And all of that translates into huge carbon savings. In fact, as a way of quantifying the benefits that brought in by my research, we do monthly calculation of how much carbon emissions we are saving, how much fuel we are saving from burning, and we translate into a number of urban trees planted, with the assumption that each urban tree has a lifespan of 10 years. So we have saved about, I would say, about 150,000 urban trees so far, if I remember right. I'll have to double check, but So by making our airspace system efficient, we are reducing carbon emissions by a great amount. And this is all going to help with our overall global warming. So every efficiency adds towards making our planet, more a better place to live.
Cool. So someone in the chat asked also, do you think people will be able to get to Kepler 452b somehow? So it's that planet, I think NASA a couple of years discovered something they deemed as like Earth's older cousin, and there was like a possibility of life. So has NASA done anything about that or anything you know of?
Unfortunately, I do not know much about what we are working on. So there's a completely different mission directorate. I do not have internal information on their research or what they're working on.
Okay, so during COVID times, people like know that most people are working remote. At NASA, how has that approach been? Like, are people still working at their research centers, or are they going all, or are they all in their homes working on like via Zoom or something?
So believe it or not, NASA already had us prepared for this kind of situation. We do go through yearly trainings, and one of them is telework training and safety when working remote and such and such. And they already covered a scenario of a pandemic happening, and how, what the plan would be, what steps everyone needs to take, and so on. So we are trained every year for this. And when the pandemic did happen, we were all prepared for it and we knew exactly what to do. So we just immediately switched to remote work. And I'm still working from home. Most people I know working from home, but at first we all switched to remote work, and then slowly, as the situation improved, they started bringing in mission critical people. And so it even now only people who absolutely need to be there are there. So for example, people who work in their lab, who need to be in the lab, who cannot work from home, they are going and working from home. But NASA has taken all the precautions to stagger the schedule and make sure that everybody is separated. There's all precautions taken to keep everybody safe. uh, so they've planned out, but everyone who can work from home is asked to work from home. But as I said, we were all trained and prepared for this, so it went on very smoothly.
Cool. So the last question we have today before the workshop ends is, can you recall like the most interesting thing that's ever happened at your time at NASA? Like maybe an interesting story or something fun that you would like to tell the audience?
Yeah, I was interacting with this gentleman at NASA, and he was talking about uh, the new telescope that NASA is working on. I can't recall its name. Um, and then he was giving, so we were just interacting and talking, and he was giving details about how the telescope will be, what the special characteristics and features about this telescope is, how it will be launched, what we hope to get from this telescope, and so on. And then at one point, he referenced back to some of his research he had done in the past, which led to, which the ideas from which were incorporated into this research and so on. And then I went back to my desk and I looked this gentleman up, and I realized he's a Nobel Prize winner in physics, and I had no idea who I was talking to. So people are so humble. I didn't know the person in building next to me. There's an astronaut who sits there, a retired astronaut. Um, I mean, there are such super achievers there, and they're all so humble. And yeah, it's amazing. The humility of people, it just blows my mind. I mean, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that place is probably filled with a lot of bright minds.
Oh yeah. I mean, and you wouldn't know. I mean, nobody brags about themselves. They're so humble, and they're always you to be to achieve your best and do your best. I think it's a dream. It's a dream. I mean, for any science nerd, there's nothing better than no place on earth that can beat what NASA can offer.
Awesome. So that just about wraps up our workshop today. Thank you so much for your time. I think we all learned something new and enjoyed it. Do you have anything else you'd like to say? Like any last thing you'd like to tell anyone?
Yeah, I would say just follow your dreams. If you want to do something, just follow your passion and try, be open to trying out different things. I mean, you all are in high school. At this point, you don't even know what all opportunities are there in front of you. Try out different things, and unless you try out, you wouldn't know what really excites you. So try out different things before deciding what you want to do. Don't just do something because somebody told you to do it. Do it because you have tried, option A, B, C, and D, and then you decided that this is what excites me most and this is what I want to do.
Cool. So that
And
wraps up.
yeah,
Oh,
just
sorry. I
yeah,
think you
that's it.
lagged out there for a moment.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was just saying try out different things before deciding. You all have this opportunity. You all are young. You don't have to make a decision right now. Take use of go to internships, try out different internships. If you are a US citizen and you want to intern at NASA, go to intern.nasa.gov and apply for internship. And they are in, and if you have interned at NASA once, I know they were we had summer interns. I mentored 2 intern teams. I encourage them to apply again next year, but to different divisions within NASA. So this year they've tried aeronautics, maybe try life sciences next year, maybe try space exploration the year after. So try out different things, and not just at NASA, at different places, different industries, and then you would know what your real calling is and what really excites you, and then you decide what you want to do. Just don't just do something because somebody told you. You need to, just like you need to try out different foods to know what you really like. Try out different fields to know where you want to work.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for attending. This marks the end of today. And this means that our continued workshops will be starting tomorrow. So make sure to attend those as well, as since we have a lot of other speakers that are going to be giving their same experiences. So thank you everyone. And then the submission process, we'll go over that as well tomorrow. So you can feel free to leave now. Thanks for coming.
Bye. Good luck, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.